Welcome to the JV Media Institute Digital Drop-In. This is Sarah, your lead instructor, and today, due to the short week and the holiday, it is just me here to talk to you and share some ideas and thoughts with you. But I'm really excited to share this topic, which is how to say no to Facebook and still build a strong, active social following. So one of the core principles that I teach in a lot of my classes is that we shouldn't make decisions about which tools and channels and strategies we use as digital marketers based just on trends and based just on what people tell us to do. It's really important for each and every one of us to figure out from a brand perspective as well as from a sales perspective and a customer perspective, what are really the best channels and vehicles for getting our messages in front of people that matter most to our companies and organizations. So even though I think commonly you hear that Facebook is a must-have for our companies, I would really still argue that businesses and companies that don't feel aligned to Facebook or simply don't want to spend their time and resources there do not have to, that there are many other options in the social media world to explore. And that's what we're going to do today, is talk about Facebook, what are the pros and cons, and then we're going to look at a number of other sites that are still driving forward in the social media industry in 2019 and talk about not only what are some of the statistics and what we know about those platforms, but we're also going to cover some of the basic best practices that I've been studying over the last 10 years, even some of the sites that have only been out for a year or 2 years or 3 years. I have paid close attention to how companies and brands are using them, how things are moving forward with the development of the platforms. And so we'll talk about what I think some of the top tips are for breaking into those platforms if you haven't already. And I'm hoping that as we go along today, that this can really be a conversation and that I can help any of you that are looking at what your alternatives are and are trying to make the decision about where you spend your time and energy and resources. Because every platform that you add to your strategy is going to require energy and time and attention. So it's important to remember that it's better to have a smaller number of channels that you're using really well and getting results than it is to try to have your brand represented on every channel, but then those channels are only getting 10% of your attention. Because just like anything in marketing, if there's no consistency, it becomes really difficult to have real success. And by success, I think I typically mean growing the bottom line and growing the revenue of your company or organization. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I really want to encourage people, if you have specific questions about platforms, if you're considering joining platforms and you're not sure and you want to have a little discussion about whether or not you should, to please chat in or use the Q&A feature and we can discuss this today. So first I want to start by talking about the pros and cons of Facebook. And I've included a number of articles for you to read by experts if you'd like to in your own time. And you can kind of hear the different types of arguments for and against. And of course, there's people on all sides of the aisle, right? So, essentially, there's people who have left Facebook and they really think we should be, walking away from Facebook at this time. And they probably also really support the efforts of breaking up the company in a lot of ways, all the way to people who feel like Facebook is a necessary evil and we shouldn't just throw out our opportunities to reach people because the platform is having problems, all the way to people who think there is really no choice, and to be part of the modern world, we have to be on Facebook. So I wanted you to be able to read through some of these articles in your own leisure and think about the different perspectives and how it applies essentially to the goals that you have and to the brand that you're building. But as we look at these different article links, I've highlighted what I think some of the main points are that are part of the conversation around keeping Facebook and not keeping Facebook, or if you're a new startup, joining Facebook or not joining Facebook. So obviously some of these things are going to cross over, but I think, the data breaches have created a huge loss of trust for people. There's an argument now that on Facebook, you can have a lot of fans, but it doesn't always guarantee engagement, and that it's, even difficult to get the engagement. even if you have, let's say, 100,000 or 200,000 fans. Engagement on Facebook doesn't always mean sales or conversions. So there's a big argument that Facebook's goal is to keep people in the app or in the website, and that it's not really helping businesses if we want to drive traffic. I think obviously there's some data on both sides of this, depending on the industry and how you're using Facebook, but it's definitely one of the arguments. There's a lot of fake accounts. This is a big complaint, and we all know this is actually a complaint across social media. So it's not just Facebook. Twitter has the same complaint, and all social media platforms are essentially figuring out different ways to define what we call fake accounts, which is accounts that are not active, that don't have, basically content contributed on a regular basis, that don't have, personalized photos and videos. So there's a big argument about the number of fake accounts and how that sort of makes you question how many people are really on Facebook. And then, of course, a lot of people are arguing that the values of Facebook as a company are just not aligned with their brand, especially when it comes to privacy and security, and also when it comes to essentially operating as a monopoly, which is a big discussion in the business world and in the tech world right now. Facebook is really working, like I said, to keep people inside their platform and to keep people on a certain level, dependent on the platform, if we can put it that way. So that's why Facebook has created so many different tools inside the platform, even people who remove the Facebook app itself, so they don't have to look at the news feed, oftentimes will keep Facebook Messenger because they want to have that back and forth conversation with people. There's a big argument, like I said, from a values perspective, that Facebook is unethical, that they violate privacy, and of course, again, that the accounts are fake and the fans that you're getting on Facebook are not genuine, that they're not real people, and they're specifically not real people that are interested in your products and services. And then, again, on the sort of flip side of these arguments, there are some tips for how you can better use Facebook. So a big push right now in discussion of Facebook marketing is that Facebook usage needs to be managed. So, and I really believe in this because I'm on Facebook every day for work. And I have found things like after work, it's really important for me to not be on the platform. It creates a lot of stress and exhaustion. And so I've even sort of encouraged my own family members and people that I'm friends with to text me rather than trying to Facebook me, just because that's where I spend so much of my day. And at the end of the day, I don't really want to be there anymore. So I do think all of us that are working on Facebook have to really understand, how we're using the tools. We don't want to get sucked into rabbit holes that are not productive. We don't want to get caught up in conversations that aren't helpful or useful. And so how can we really look at Facebook and approach it from a healthy perspective? There's also a big push on the part of a lot of marketers and tech people to support legislation around data collection and access to personal data. So there's a big question right now, especially with where, the European kind of countries are going with this topic, that as individual people, we have a right to our own data, and that big data collectors like Facebook and Google we deserve for them to give us the right to know what's being collected about us and to see that information and to decide whether or not they should be able to store that information anywhere. So if you really believe in privacy and security, one of the things that you can do if you're going to keep your Facebook is still support the legislation that will rein them in these practices. I think using Facebook as a tool with a clear purpose can help you deal with a lot of the things around it that may be, again, stressful or frustrating. So knowing why you're on Facebook, what you want to provide people with on that tool, how you believe that tool is serving your brand, knowing those things will allow you to use the tool in a better and stronger way. Some people are opting to use Facebook just for customer service. So this is, I think, a really important conversation to have, that you don't necessarily need to be actively marketing on Facebook if you don't want to. Some people, it's really important for them to keep their Facebook business page, one, because their community or their audience definitely is using Facebook at a high rate. And also they want those people to be able to ask questions, send messages, get the hours, get the physical location, get links to the store online or the website online or whatever it is. So they still want people to be able to find their brand on Facebook and interact with them, but they're not going to be there participating in the news feed generally. They're not going to be really working the tool. It's simply going to exist for communications and customer service with people who already know the brand. So I think this is a very valid choice for companies that are struggling with the idea that they don't want to completely give up Facebook altogether. So I see a question here from Colleen. Thanks for being here. And I'm sorry, a question from Aaron. So what are some examples of using your Facebook with a clear purpose? Great. So Aaron, that's a great question. So for me, when I say clear purpose, it basically has to do with the goals being more specific. So I want to know when I'm talking to students and clients, if we're using Facebook, is the goal to generate online sales from your store? Is that really one of the main purposes of the page? So do we really need that click-through rate? And then we need actually people on the website converting. That's something that I think is a clear purpose. We can track that. We can know if it's working. We can design content to support that or ads to support that. Another good example would be, like I said, just the customer service aspect. So many students I'm working with now, customer service is a big aspect of their Facebook purpose. So we're really looking at, okay, we need to make sure there's certain things that are accurate. We need to make sure that the content includes things like location closings or the launch of new products or things like that that existing customers are going to need. So a good example of this would be, I worked with a software company where they weren't really marketing to new clients on Facebook, but they were communicating with existing clients. And one of the main things that created engagement for their Facebook page was that their clients needed to know when the updates were released for their software. And so even though that sounds like a really mundane, boring thing, the clients were really enjoying getting access to that directly on Facebook. They could just go check for the alerts on the latest updates, click the link, and it would automatically allow them to update their software. So that to me, again, is sort of a clear purpose, not just customer service, but now we know that what people need access to are the update links. And it's easier for them to do it on Facebook than it would be to get in an email. I think a third example of clear purpose would be, let's say we have an event that we want to promote. And one of the main things that we want Facebook to do is drive ticket sales or drive people showing up at the event. If we know that that's a clear objective, then we can utilize the Facebook tools with that clear objective in mind. And I think this just, again, allows us to stay focused and to use Facebook for achieving specific things. And I think if you look at the Facebook advertising, one of the first things that you do when you log into the ad manager is you choose your objective. And I find that we need to take that same principle and apply it to the organic work that we do. A lot of companies and organizations are spending time on Facebook, but there's no real clear objective. They're just updating things or kind of scrambling to keep up with content. And I think that can make the whole process of using Facebook and managing it and monitoring it a little bit cumbersome and disorganized, and it doesn't allow you to see that the time you're spending on Facebook is really valuable in producing results. So the clearer your purpose, the clearer your objective, I think the more you're going to be able to see that the work you're doing is actually valuable and has benefit to your organization or business. So I hope those examples kind of make sense. There's like sort of a million that we could go to depending on whether or not your conversions and sales are online or offline, whether, you're doing it for marketing and communications, or just marketing, or maybe sales is the number one purpose. Again, whether you're trying to get in front of new people versus engaging the people who already know about the brand, or both things could be part of the purpose, right? So it's really, I think, about objectives, goals, and how do we refine that and have a clear pathway forward. Instead of just going to Facebook and kind of creating content for the sake of just having it up there. I feel like that's where we're all kind of getting what I call content fatigue, and Facebook is exhausting us to a certain extent and making us feel like it just sort of never ends. So the last piece I want to mention too is to get to know your privacy and security settings. Great, I'm glad that was helpful. So especially if you're an individual person with a little bit of an aversion to being on Facebook, but you're managing it for your profession, your career, your job, I think it's really important that on your personal account, you understand all the privacy and security. And then when you get into your business page, there's also settings around privacy and security. They're much, much simpler and not as robust because, most business pages, the goal is for them to be out there and visible. But for you personally, if you have any issues, just knowing how the privacy and security works will be really, really valuable. So I think overall, when it comes to Facebook, what we're facing as far as challenges are high levels of competition, high levels of saturation, and high levels of frustration. So this is where, like I said, this conversation is a conversation I'm having with more and more people. And I think we just have to figure out, what value does Facebook have? Should we stay or should we go? If we're going to stay, how are we going to avoid struggling with these three things? And how are we going to, make sure that they are not an impediment to our success? So I think, how people feel in general is changing about Facebook, even though Facebook is still the most highly saturated social market in the sense that more people, especially in the United States, use Facebook than any other platform. That's still the truth. It's right around 69-70%, especially people in the US use it. And even though, Facebook still has kind of the highest number of users, how those users feel is shifting. So you can check out this Consumer Reports link that I'm sharing with you here. And they talk a lot about what is changing and how people are becoming more knowledgeable about privacy and security, how they are spending more time getting educated about Facebook as a company and their practices, and all of that. So I think we want to be aware of that because that's going to affect all of us, because our own consumers, the people that are fans of our brands, they are being affected by this change in perspective, and this change in feeling about Facebook itself as a company. We know that people want to connect with their loved ones in their feed more than they want to connect with brands. So, of course, that doesn't mean that there's not plenty of successful companies on Facebook that are running ads, getting organic engagement, getting traffic to their website, getting sales on Facebook directly. All of these things are still happening. But in January of 2018, we saw that Facebook changed their algorithm to prioritize content coming from people that are the loved ones of their members. So their family, their friends, their colleagues, the people they see every week, the people they connect with every week. So I think this is just something we all have to embrace. This came directly from Facebook users, right? So the members of Facebook said, we want to see more content in our newsfeed from our friends and our family and the people we love. So that's always going to be true. I don't think that's going to change. I think we've seen some alterations in how businesses are showing up, and we're going to still see that in the future. Yes, Sherry, I see your question here. Yeah, absolutely. Every digital drop-in that we do, I share all of the slides and a recording of this as well. So absolutely, you all get a follow-up email probably tomorrow sometime, and it will have all this information so you can explore it on your own. And I'm sorry I didn't start with that at the beginning. Thank you for reminding me. Also, like I said, to the point of competition and saturation, we've got 7 million plus active advertisers on the platform right now that are literally advertising every day. We've got 60 million active business pages overall. So we've got a lot of businesses and brands represented through those business page tools. And then just in the second quarter of 2019, Facebook earned $16.6 billion in ad revenue. And that was a 28% increase from the second quarter of 2018. So Facebook is making a lot of money. Advertising is becoming more and more competitive. The cost of advertising is definitely going up, especially in the last 2 to 3 years. We've seen this. So I think there's things we have to accept about the Facebook world, which is competition and saturation aren't going to go away. I think we're going to have to learn how to manage our own frustrations with the system. We're going to have to understand our audiences, how we can make them feel more secure, and how we can keep building trust, even though we're using a tool that may be losing it. And I think that we always have to accept that at the end of the day, whatever we're selling is never going to be more important than the people that our audiences care about and love. So all of that is just sort of a reality check, I think, around how we're using Facebook and understanding its value for our businesses. So what are the alternatives? Now, I could have made this a very long call and added every alternative in the world, because there's lots of different social media sites coming out all the time. There's lots of different niche tools and communities that are available for people. I'm going to touch on a highlighted few that I think are really being a big part of the conversation in the social media marketing world. And I've just put together kind of a quick overview to start of just kind of who the audiences are, where we're at, and the size of the platforms, and things like that. So I want to start with Facebook's other social platform, Instagram. Instagram, of course, is at well over 1 billion monthly active users. So they crossed over that some time ago, which was a big deal. There's not a lot of platforms that are in that category outside of Facebook and YouTube. There's over 500 million daily active users, and last year in 2018, Instagram was the fastest growing platform. So it's interesting that somehow, even though Facebook is taking sort of a brand or PR hit, even though they own Instagram, Instagram has continued to move forward kind of brilliantly and doing really well. 25% of Facebook's ad revenue last year was from Instagram, or from this year. So essentially right now, Instagram is driving a quarter of that 16.6 billion that we saw in Q2 of this year, which is a big deal. And I think makes it important for Facebook to keep the integrity of Instagram and to really think of that site as separate from Facebook in a lot of ways, and having its kind of own cloud. And we see them focusing on that, even though they're combining things like the ad manager and other tools. In 2018, 72% of teens used Instagram and 71% of people between 18 and 24. So again, we see that in the younger markets, Instagram is kind of a bigger player. We know a lot of them are still on Facebook. As a matter of fact, you would see the numbers for these age groups that have Facebook accounts probably around the same percentages. It's not like teens are at 30% of them have a Facebook. A lot of them still have a Facebook. I think it's just important to realize that those younger people may be interacting with their friends on other platforms, and they're on Facebook to interact with their moms and their grandmas and their uncles and their cousins and other types of people, maybe even their own teachers and things like that. So, we do see Instagram as having a good kind of excitement. It's also stylistically more like Snapchat, so that excitement from the younger markets, I think, makes total sense, because it's a style of content and a way of looking at things that is simpler, more visual, more video based, and all of that. And then 80% of people on Instagram are following a business or brand. So a lot of them do follow brands they love on Instagram. No, Colleen, it's 71% of people between 18 and 24 have an Instagram. So yeah, so basically, I guess, yes, that is what you're saying. 71% of all people using Instagram. No, okay, so no, it's not 71% of the people on Instagram are 18 to 24. It's that 71% of 18 to 24-year-olds are using Instagram. So I hope that makes sense. There is a difference there. Instagram is actually pretty broad in age groups. So definitely not 2/3 of it are just one age group. All age groups are represented on Instagram, and older age groups are growing there for sure. Just like Facebook, we see that, especially baby boomers are moving into Instagram really because it's so easy to kind of move over from Facebook to Instagram. So yeah, it's really just that age group of 18 to 24, and then under 18, they have a pretty high saturation of those people, that group of people that uses Instagram. So Snapchat, this is something, again, that a lot of people ask me about. And Snapchat is a very small social platform, all things considered. It's got about 190 million daily users as of the beginning of this year. 13 to 29-year-olds are the vast majority of their main audience. And again, 13 to 17-year-olds, almost 70% of them use the app, and 18 to 29-year-olds, it's the same, just 1% lower. So we see in those two age groups, Snapchat's really, really popular. About 60% of Snapchat users are female. And one of the things about Snapchat I think is interesting is they've been very influencer kind of based. A lot of influencers join Snapchat. There's a lot of positivity for influencers because they can make really clear personal connections with people. However, when they took criticism from bigger influencers like Kylie Jenner, essentially they saw a drop in people on their platform. So Snapchat's growth has slowed a lot in the last year, although they're holding steady with their current membership. And I think they've had to be very careful because of the nature of their younger audiences that they don't have too many famous people saying they don't like Snapchat anymore, because it almost immediately reduces the number of members on their site. So that's an interesting conundrum that they faced. Also, they faced the conundrum of Instagram pretty much copying a lot of the platform's features. So Instagram started to compete with them at a much higher rate. And so that's something there's a lot of talk about. I still think for Snapchat, there's some real value in the fact that for younger audiences, they know that it's a majority of younger people. So they don't feel that they're being watched as much by, let's say, members of their family and things like that. 92% of people that view a snap from a brand story view the entire video. So we do see that on Snapchat, people will watch whole videos. Of course, videos are much shorter on Snapchat in a general sense, but it is awesome when we see that people aren't abandoning the content before it's completed itself. So I think that's kind of a positive of everything being in that shorter format. 57% of brand content on Snapchat is video. So video is something you've got to get into. The filters, not just sort of video in the traditional sense, but the live streaming, the filters, the time lapses, all these things that we see getting popular on Instagram are also really popular here. Snapchat has, in the last few years, had certain months where it reaches 10 billion daily video views. That's a lot. And they have reached a number of months where they were getting more than 3 billion snaps sent every day. So even though that's not consistent across every single month, I think the fact that they're hitting that type of a level of engagement is really, really powerful, and kind of shows the power of video. So Twitter, again, I'm going to, like I said, sort of give you a snapshot of each of these. We won't go through every single detail, but you can dig into these a little bit more if you want. Twitter is at 330 million monthly active users, but one big thing to note about them is they have started using a new piece of data called the MDAU, or monetizable daily active users. So they basically say that there's about 139 million of that 330 that are MDAU, and that means that the user can log in and see ads. So they're definitely trying to get clear on what the potential audience size is for companies that really want to generate conversions and sales and things like that. We still see that younger people use Twitter, although it's less than half. So if we're looking at just the 18 to 24 age range, about 45% of them are using Twitter. We do see that Twitter users often use Instagram, and I think this makes sense because I prefer Twitter in a lot of ways. I still use Instagram quite a bit personally. I love the hashtag crossover. So a lot of the conversations that I'm having on Twitter, I can listen into those similar conversations and content by using the same hashtags. It doesn't always translate, but a lot of times it'll translate, which is, I think, really valuable. About just under half, 46% of Twitter users are on the platform every day. So I will say, as a Twitter user, I check it every day. I don't post every day a lot of times. And definitely I will take, the weekends off or whatever it is. So again, we don't see with Twitter that same compulsion to be on it all the time. I think people just naturally have a little bit clearer intention. Although when it comes to events and TV, like sports events or TV events, film events, we do see that people will use the platform pretty intensely while something is happening in real time. So that's an interesting kind of piece that a lot of people on Twitter, they might not use it every single day, but then they might use it a lot for like 1 week while they're at an event or something of that nature. And then hashtags are still really creating increases in engagement. So really listening on Twitter, and this also goes for Instagram, really listening, understanding how hashtags are used, and including not hashtags for hashtags' sake, but hashtags that are really relevant to your content. It can actually really boost whether or not you're getting in front of people that are interested in topics that you are connecting with them on. And if you are, through the hashtag, really connecting with people that are interested in a certain topic or conversation, they tend to engage more. So we really see that as a positive. So YouTube, I wanted to include in this conversation. YouTube is the second most visited site in the world, only behind Google, and it's owned by Google. So I think to, not include YouTube as an alternative when it comes to social media, is to leave something big out. The majority of all users on YouTube end up in the 25 to 44 age group. So we do see a bulk of people are in that sort of millennial up to the Gen Xer ages. And there's still, again, many, many people of all age groups on YouTube, like millions and millions and millions. But we just see that sort of, especially people in their 30s, early 40s, if you're trying to reach that range, YouTube has a strong draw for them. 62% of YouTube users are male, so it skews a little bit more towards men. Definitely in the younger markets, if we look at teenagers especially, we see that YouTube's almost completely replaced TV in a lot of ways. So a lot of younger teens and college-age kids they think of YouTube the same way I thought of TV growing up. And even people all the way up to 50 years old. A lot of people are now using YouTube to view different things. I know I view different content pretty much every day on YouTube, at home on my big screen. So especially with news and things like that, late night talk shows, all of that kind of stuff I can watch to keep up with it. There's also a lot of other stuff related to YouTube that you can dig into, but I think it's important to realize 500 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. So just think about that. And more than 1 billion hours of YouTube videos are watched per day. So YouTube's massive global appeal makes it a really important website. LinkedIn essentially has about 610 members. They have about 303 monthly active users and about 121 million daily active users. LinkedIn is going to be really strong if you are business to business. So if you are selling products and services to other businesses, other brands that are business related, you're not necessarily selling to the public. I think LinkedIn has some real strong value. And you can see from the list of their membership breakdown that a third of millionaires are on LinkedIn. There's a lot of senior level influencers, decision makers, C-level executives, all of these different people that are in business decision making positions are on this platform. So I find it really valuable. And then, of course, you have things that are newer, like TikTok, which was originally called Musical.ly. TikTok's got over 500 million plus people globally using the platform, but only about 5% of them are in the US. So even though TikTok is getting a lot of attention, we only have about 27 million people in the US that are using it currently. And almost 65 to 70%, depending on the study you're reading, of people using this app are under 30. So this is definitely a younger market kind of app and social media area. Of course, like I said, there's many other alternatives. So there's blog style social media sites like Tumblr, which I'm a big fan of. There's chat style social media like WeChat and WhatsApp. This really facilitates more group chatting and one-on-one chatting. And then there's things like Vimeo or other sites like Dailymotion that are still more video oriented and are similar to YouTube. So there's lots of other things out there to explore, but the ones that I just reviewed, I think are really strong when it comes to, they're really pushing into the marketplace. There's a lot more case studies about them. There's a lot more brands using them. So we can understand more how you apply the different tools and strategies when it comes to things like TikTok and Snapchat. There's, things to explore there now. I will say, as a marketer and somebody who consults with a lot of companies, I'm always very thoughtful about how quickly we adopt new platforms and how we spend some time really listening, making sure that our audience is there, and really making sure that we think we can accomplish our goals or our purpose by being there, right? So sometimes when something first comes out and it's just trendy, it's great to be an early adopter in a lot of ways, and you can do that, but you don't really see the full potential of what you're doing. So a good example would be right now, TikTok, as far as I know, at least a month ago, it didn't support ads. So that's one of the reasons TikTok is so popular, because there's no advertising built into it. As they grow, though, we'll see how they evolve, right? So that's the kind of thing that you can't know when you first start out. And as the platform develops and gets accepted by the public, or adopted, we kind of see how things play out. And if you want to explore this more, you're going to study the story of Vine and how Vine became very trendy, very popular, and then within a couple of years was done. So how can we as businesses, before we invest lots of time and money and energy into something, really make sure that it's a good fit for what we want to do when it comes to our communications, marketing, and sales? So here's some of the roundup of best practices that I want to share with you. Instagram. I know a lot of businesses have already moved into this world, so I'm sure many of you are already doing things. My top 5 sort of pieces that I think are going to come into play with Instagram right now that I'm telling a lot of different students are essentially use stories. So if you're not breaking into story content, start doing it. And that means don't just do a photo and, one live stream, but start to really explore what Stories is capable of. Do stop motion, do boomerangs, do the stickers, try a poll, use some of the filters to create something more visually engaging that stands out. There's so many creative ways that businesses and brands can use stories. So if you're not using them, figure out how they work into your Instagram strategy, because the fact that they disappear creates an urgency, especially within younger markets, to actually pay attention to the content because they know it won't be there later. So there's something to play with there that I think we can all explore, whether we're product-based or service-based. Follow and use hashtags. So on Instagram, you can follow hashtags and really see what kind of content is associated with them. So use that social listening opportunity. And like I said, don't add hashtags for hashtags' sake. Add hashtags that you think your audience is going to relate to and that are completely relevant to the content that you're sharing. The only exception would be is if you have a brand hashtag that you really want to place in every post, then use that brand hashtag. But outside of that, I think it's really important to be relevant and to do some listening and then use the hashtags appropriately. Don't overstuff them. Create and share video. So again, Instagram, if you want to stand out in the feed, having more video content is going to make a difference. Really think about how, too, you can diversify the type of video content you're sharing. So don't overcomplicate it. How can it just be simple things? You have a short time frame in Instagram, so move forward with that. Build partnerships. So a big part of Instagram is definitely influencers, definitely partnership marketing, definitely working together with other organizations, brands, and companies to build trust, build relationships, and connect with people. So don't be afraid to do that. Tag people, repost their information, get involved with them, and have strategic ways that you push forward. There's so many different ways that different partners can work together to gain more exposure for content and to engage with each other that's helpful. And then if you want to run ads on Instagram, but you're not really using Facebook, think about how you can set up a Facebook business page. Simply use it for customer service. Have a post at the top of the page that says, "We are not on Facebook very frequently. Please check out our Instagram," link people to it. But once you have a Facebook business page, you're going to be able to run the advertising onto Instagram. So they did kind of lock us into that piece, but I do think advertising on Instagram is powerful and important. So Snapchat. Snapchat is something I think that people are still trying to figure out. I have included a link to the ultimate guide to Snapchat from Ad Espresso, which if you've never checked out that website, definitely check out this guide and many other guides that they share. But essentially Snapchat, I think, is a world where, again, it skews a lot younger and it skews to a lot of people that are digital natives. And so we really have to start thinking like them and becoming really comfortable in our expressions as brands on platforms like this. So I think we have to get creative and have fun. We can't be stuffy. We can't be overly rigid. We can't seem sort of cut off when we're connecting with people. We can still be professional and have a good time. I really believe we can have a good time while we're being professional. So Snapchat is a great way to stretch yourself. And if you want to tap into younger markets, figure out how you can get their attention, how you can connect in with the things that they care about. And sometimes this takes us really outside of our normal realm of operations. Snapchat really relies on being in the moment and real time. So figuring out how you can be in the moment and share things of value is, I think, a key piece to being successful on Snapchat. And it's hard because sometimes you're like, well, being in the moment, from my perspective, is boring. I work in an office all day, so if I'm going to be in the moment on Snapchat, I'm going to have to literally be the one on Snapchat, and I'm going to have to be showing you what I'm doing in my office. But there's so many ways that I can get creative and have fun with that. So maybe that's sharing snaps of our office dog. Maybe that's sharing a snap of me solving a problem real quick, whatever it is. So really think about how you can be in the moment and not over-orchestrate everything on Snapchat. Be authentic and have a personality. I'm a big fan with a lot of these chat style social media platforms of having one person that kind of becomes the face of the brand that's really comfortable being themselves, sharing their personality, and making an actual connection. Especially with younger markets, if they don't see themselves reflected, it's hard. So you have to figure out how the person that they're seeing or the people they're seeing regularly are going to be people that they feel they relate to. And again, if you're bland and kind of cut off, it's not going to resonate as well. Go all in with video. So really explore video. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's part of figuring out how to do it right on social media, sometimes not doing it right the first few times. So jump into video. Don't be afraid of it. If you don't feel comfortable, then someone on your team who is comfortable needs to kind of take the lead with that type of content. And then think about how on Snapchat, you not only send things out to everybody you're connected to, but you can send individual messages to specific people or to groups of people. So again, think about how you can get to know your audiences and create groups of them that are, connected by different aspects or psychographics that they have. And how can you communicate with them? That takes some time to get to know your audiences first and to ask a lot of questions and listen, figure out what kind of groups of people there are. But as you do that, especially in the beginning when your network is small, you really be able to start communicating with people in a way that makes them feel like they have a true personal connection with your brand. So for Twitter, one thing I love about Twitter, it's a really great way to connect with the media and use for public relations. So if that's part of the marketing that you're doing on the other side, it's not just digital, but you are, pitching stories, reaching out to journalists, reaching out to bloggers, even if by media you mean influencers, Twitter is a great way to make connections with those people. Figure out what they're talking about, listen to their audiences, see what things are getting them the most attention, and then engage with them with that knowledge. Because when you engage with those people with the knowledge of who they are, what they do, what they care about, you're able to pitch them in a stronger way. On Twitter, one big mistake I think brands are making, they never have time set aside during the week to actually comment and engage. So carefully select the movers and shakers that you're following or that are following you, people that you think share your audiences, people that have clout that, if they say something about you, it'd be a really positive thing. And then take some time each week, whether it's, 20 minutes on Tuesday and 20 minutes on Thursday to engage with those people, heart things, comment on things, respond to things. Even on your own tweets, if people are commenting, go in and respond to them. Even if it's a day or two later, 3 days later, that's fine. But conversation on Twitter is a huge part of actually participating in the community, and it makes a difference. Twitter is also great at driving click-through. So you have to have a great website or, in the very least, a great landing page where you're sending people. So if part of your purpose or goals is to get people over to the website, then make sure that you have somewhere to send them that's going to be awesome, that gives them an easy way to convert or to connect or whatever it is. And then listen carefully to what's trending and keep things short and sweet. So again, we go to don't overcomplicate things. On YouTube, I think you have to decide whether or not you're doing SEO or social media or both. So YouTube has value on both of these strategies. I think it's important, regardless of which strategy you choose, whether it's to build a following and a channel, or it's to have your videos get found in YouTube and Google searches, you have to have clear calls to action. You want to make sure that you embed your videos on your website and even take those MP4s and put them on Facebook and put them other places. You want to use the title and description with intention. So clearly tell people what the video is about, have links in the description to different pages of your website or your blog or whatever it is. And before you start building up a lot of video content, do some researching about what people are looking for through Google and through YouTube. You can do a lot of keyword research on tools that will help you understand the intent of people and what they're looking for. That would allow you to generate a lot of good ideas about the types of video content you should be creating. And then again, if you're using YouTube for social purposes, engage in the conversations, respond to comments. If they're useful. If they're crazy, you can ignore them or report them. But engage in conversations and get to know people. That's sort of the difference between the social and the SEO aspect. Some companies are doing one, some are doing the other, some are doing both. When you're trying to really foster the level of subscribers and having people watching your videos every week, having that personal connection is going to be really valuable. LinkedIn. Complete your profile. It's just like your resume. Get everything up there. Use the publishing tools to write blog posts on LinkedIn itself. So if you have events, if you have expert content you want to share, repurpose a lot of it into your LinkedIn profile. It can be really valuable. Their app just released video live streaming. So now you can live stream on your phone in your LinkedIn app. So if you have thought leadership ideas, expertise you want to share, things like that, the video might be more engaging. So consider using that new feature. Join relevant groups and make connections with people, answer questions, make yourself available, engage with them so that they know you are somebody that they can reach out to and think of as a resource. And then look for prospects and see if anyone else that's already in your network can introduce you to different companies, brands, or organizations. And if you have a company page, make sure you're enlisting the help of your team if they have individual profiles to really build the company page. Get them to follow the page, comment on the page, share the content from the page. If you give your staff the ability to do that, they can help get the page more exposure, and then invite your customers to do the same. But really help them understand why they should follow you on LinkedIn, why it's beneficial for them. If there's no reason for them to connect to the page, they won't do it. And then if you're not familiar with TikTok, I wanted to define them a little bit. Users film videos where they are lip syncing or acting out comedy sketches that are up to 15 seconds long. They can then choose from songs and effects and sound bites, and they create these kind of video things or video content pieces. They can create duets with other people, so collaboration is really encouraged. And they can also upload their own sounds and audio and things like that. So it's sort of like a creator kind of community that's happening on TikTok. A few of the things that are really working on TikTok, creating challenges. There's a great case study right now about Jimmy Fallon and the TikTok challenge he created and the amount of response that it got. You can really work with influencers that are already present on TikTok and see how they can help you kind of get your brand in front of people and help you build your following. Hashtags still have value in TikTok. You really want to take, Snapchat requires creativity and fun. I think TikTok requires even more innovative creativity and fun. So thinking about how your brand can represent itself from a very funny, silly, laid back way is important. And if you're a brand that isn't funny or silly or laid back, then TikTok might not be a great choice for you. It's really strong for younger markets if that's what you're going for. So that would really be the incentive. And I think you have to have, again, personality and let your hair down in this world. So you can't take it too seriously. You have to think of it as more experimental. Most brands right now, if they're on TikTok, they're an early adopter. And again, similar to Snapchat, it's great if you have the ability to figure out how to get one person to kind of take the lead. So I know we're coming right up on 1 o'clock. I want to open up for any questions Again, you can just type them in or use the Q&A. I haven't seen any come through while I was sharing the different platforms. But if there's questions about the best practices or about the actual audiences on the platforms, please let me know, and I'm glad to answer those. Let's see what we've got here. Any best practices for saying goodbye to Facebook? So absolutely, great question. I think every company is going to do this a little bit different. And you actually can go to Google and type in quitting Facebook and read, like I said, some of the articles that I shared with you about how different people are doing it. A lot of people did make big announcements over time. So I will say that's the one best practice I would say that all companies are following. If they're going to end their Facebook presence entirely and actually delete their page, then they're basically giving people a few months to pour into other places. You'll see some companies are also doing an email collection. So they're basically saying, hey, we're going to be closing down our Facebook page. You can either follow us over here or join our email newsletter. That way they have a way to sort of lead gen people into a list that then they can use to connect with people in different ways. So I think those are two of the biggest things. Again, the third thing would be whether or not it's worth it to leave your page there, have all of your important information that people need to call you, visit you, do whatever it is, and just have that post at the very top that says, we are no longer present on Facebook very often. All of our information is accurate. However, if you'd like to comment and talk back and forth and chat with people, please go to and link them over to your other social media profile. So let me know if there's any other questions about that, Colleen. And then Aaron, I see going back to Facebook, do you think it's beneficial to share all blog posts to Facebook? Our engagement is not very high for blog shares. So Aaron, this is actually, I think, a pretty common thing. And this is why in a lot of content strategies for Facebook, we make sure we're really diversifying so that we have our website or blog content coming through, but we also are giving people ways to engage directly with us in Facebook without leaving their feed. So I think that, you can continue to post those blog posts, but I think, of course, we're going to see that things that require people to click away from the system are always getting kind of lower engagement than things that they can just engage with directly there. So if I have a blog post, I might think about how I can share the blog post and the link and invite people to go there, but also have some other posts about that topic that actually allow people to engage and have conversations about that topic directly inside of the Facebook newsfeed. The other thing that we do with a lot of blog posts is oftentimes the content that's getting the most engagement, Facebook will say, this is getting a lot of engagement, boost it. But the truth is, I would save that boost budget for the things that aren't getting engagement, right? And so I would boost some of those blog posts to a more targeted audience that I created in advance for that particular topic or for our blog in general, so that we can try to get that content that drives people to our website more attention. But I do think it's beneficial to share all your blog posts when you can to Facebook. I think it's just, you don't want that to be the only thing that you're doing, and you want those things to be broken up on your timeline with other types of content, maybe a video to watch, maybe a poll to answer, maybe, whatever it is that allows them to engage right on the system. And then Christina, I see your question. Do you have a suggestion for an article on how to use YouTube, keywords and all that? I've heard of TubeBuddy and I'm curious about the best YouTube strategy instead of just posting a video. Thanks. Christina, I'm going to invite you to email me. In these slides, you'll see my email is on multiple slides. So it's on the one that we just looked at, and it's on this list of JB Media Institute resources. So please email me a reminder of this, and I will gladly send you a list of articles that I have about YouTube. Again, keep in mind, I think one important thing that's not often talked about is that YouTube, you can do SEO strategy or social strategy or both. And they're very different things. So I want to make sure that you're just aware when you're reading that you take that to heart and understanding what your goals are. If they're more SEO focused, some of the social suggestions for YouTube wouldn't be necessary. But I really want to invite you, please email me. I'm glad to share with you the 4 or 5 things that I have at my fingertips. And then Veronica, I see your question here. Do you recommend one person represent the brand across all platforms, or is it okay to have one voice but have the person best suited to that platform to represent the brand on it? This is an excellent question. Thank you, Veronica. So I would say personally that I believe it's okay to have a unified voice, but different individuals that become sort of the rep on different platforms. I absolutely believe in that. I don't think that one person is typically great at every social media platform. So I find that somebody might be really good at Snapchat, but they're not as good at Facebook. They might be really good at Instagram, but they're not as good at Twitter. And the truth is, it's because it's really hard for any of us, myself included, even though I'm presenting all these facts and information, it's really hard for me to be an expert on every single platform out there, right? Because there's so much to keep up with. There's so many strategies, so many different things that we can do. So I think it's about knowing the brand, knowing the brand's purpose and goals, understanding the brand voice and message, and then from there deciding who on the team has the passion, the excitement, the understanding, the bandwidth to participate in a specific platform. And that doesn't mean you can't feature different people even. There could be 3 people on your team that are really great on Snapchat, and maybe we figure out really clear content strategy for involving them. I work with a lot of marketing coordinators and directors who are delegating this stuff, and so a lot of times they have a vision of the team and how it should work and who can manage what, because they have the bigger picture of the department. And so I think there's ways that we can avoid, like I said, content burnout, stress, and things like that on our social media people, while also making sure that we make real personal connections on the platforms that matter. And then I see, let's see, just another comment here. Natasha, yeah, I know some people have had to go. Thanks so much for the positive comment. But if there's any other questions, I'm glad to stay on for another few minutes and take them. Like I said, everyone will get a copy of these slides and the recording. Also, if you're interested in checking out more of what the JB Media Institute has going on, you can review our upcoming DIY tourism marketing workshop. We have a new program called the Content Strategy Roadmap launching in September, and it'll include a special program for 10 people that sign up to join a monthly coaching group with me, where we'll really address challenges and trends, make decisions. We have our next digital drop-in on October 9th, so save the date. I have an amazing guest coming in, and to keep on the Facebook theme, we're going to talk about Facebook Messenger marketing and chat bots. So I'm looking forward to that. So if anybody wants to get more involved, please reach out to me anytime. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can always email me directly. And again, if there are things that didn't get answered today, even if you're listening to this recording after the fact, please feel free to email me, and I'm glad to share any additional resources, YouTube or otherwise. So thank you all so much for joining me. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you at our next digital drop-in.